Welcome to No Straight Lines, the podcast that gets real about performance, resilience, and what it really takes to grow, lead, and thrive. This isn't just about the wins, it's about the work, the grit, the setbacks, and the strength to keep going when things go wrong. I'm Laurence Winmill, your host, an entrepreneur, and someone who's learned resilience through facing some of life's toughest moments. Each week I sit down with leaders from the world of business, sport, entertainment, and the community to unpack the moments that shaped them, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Because success, it's never a straight line. This is No Straight Lines, stories of the unbreakable. Good afternoon, Paul, and welcome to No Straight Lines.
Thank you, Laurence. Glad to be here.
It's great to see you. Stories of the unbreakable. So we're going to be talking about your story. We're going to be talking about your time in architecture and project management, and some of the other things as well that is close to your heart in terms of the culture, the values, the working practices in your current role as director at Lee Wakeman's. So now, I know you're not a native of Wales. I think you're born out of North London, so you must be a Tottenham Hotspur or an Arsenal supporter.
Arsenal, yeah.
Arsenal supporter. But you came to Wales back in 1988, 1990 to study architecture, and from there you decided to stay.
Yep.
So you've been in it a long time. You've had two key employers to date. What's been the driving force behind your ambitions to sort of succeed in project management and move from architecture into project management? What's driven you?
I think one of the great things about what we do in delivering projects is you see something right at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's a very specific end goal. You're creating a product and you're getting it realised. As an architect, which I practiced for 17 years, you would talk to the client, work out what is it they want to achieve, try and translate that into some sort of building that's going to work for them. Develop the design, go through the planning process, go through the contractor procurement processes, and eventually you get a building built.
Yeah.
And that's very rewarding. Every client, every building, every design team is different. So every day is quite different. Then, during the late 90s, early 2000s, when there was no project managers previously, we started to get this emergence of the role of the project manager.
Interesting.
Which was doing some of the role of the architect. It was the leadership of the project. So I then did supplementary training, trained as a project manager, got my APM qualifications, and then in 2007 decided I will wholeheartedly switch from the architecture role to project management role. I say to continue doing what I was doing previously.
Interesting though, because nothing is forever, is it really? You know, things change.
Yep.
And I suppose you either adjust and as you did, retrain and keep up with those trends,
Yep.
or you become a victim of change and you fall by the wayside.
Absolutely.
And I see it all of the time in various people we speak to. We talk about in this podcast anyway about resilience and what things you have to do to succeed.
Yep.
And these are big decisions because you could have quite easily, I think, your first employer was Boys Rees Architecture.
That's right.
You were there for 7 years. You could have quite easily, as many would have, just sort of stayed the course and just gone as far as you could have gone.
Yep.
And risk, if you like, becoming redundant or whatever as things change. But you didn't. You saw you had vision and you decided that you were going to move. So is that just good judgment, awareness, or were there other factors pushing you?
I think it was awareness that the industry's changing. I like to play to my strengths. I know that in the projects I was doing as an architect, I was quasi-project manager. Not to disrespect other project managers in the industry, but quite a lot of them come from a quantity surveying background.
Yes.
So they haven't got that natural leadership or how do we get things done within their DNA. They're more about risk and cost, which is absolutely important to part of the project, but not how do we get it done. In my time as an architect, I was all about how do we get it done. And then bringing that into project management, it was much more focusing on that. How do we take some challenging projects and drive them through to completion? That's been one of the important aspects that I feel we've done within Lee Wakeman's. The guys previously were quantity surveyors. They were being asked to do more and more project management type work. They said, this is not us. So I said, after some conversations, I'll come in, I'll develop project management, so we have the two side by side, project management and cost management or quantity surveying. And the two then are complementary to each other in terms of leadership and control of a project.
I like that, and it was interesting when I was speaking to your colleague Charlotte in the business regarding this interview. A quote was supplied. I'll read it to you. It must resonate because it's about you.
Okay.
It talks about high-profile projects in project management, and the quote is: "A design-led philosophy to project management, focusing not on design content but on the orchestration of procurement, delivery, and collaboration." So it brings all of those pieces together.
Yeah.
And as a compliment to you, that was written about the strengths that you bring to your role in company development at Lee Wakeman. We'll take you back a bit though, before Lee Wakeman, into Boys Rees.
Yeah.
And talk about some of the, and tell me if you're uncomfortable talking about some of these names, then just tell me and we'll move on. But
sure.
As a site architect, I think you were instrumental in terms of the project, which was the energy glass factory in Cardiff Bay. And I think you were on a timeline there of 12 months and a significant budget as well. Give us a bit of a backdrop to that. What was involved in that project?
So that was a very fast project. The conversation around that time was it was probably the fastest project in Europe at the time.
Wow.
We delivered a glass factory 250 metres long in 12 months.
My God.
I think if we were doing that now, we'd probably be looking at 3 years.
Wow.
In order to get that done, what was absolutely key was everyone working together. You needed that team ethos to come through everybody,
Yes.
through designers, through the procurement team, subcontractors, people on site. And I can remember days where we would just sit down with the relevant team, let's say internal walls, and go, how are we going to do like 2 kilometres of internal walls very quickly? You got the practical guys who are on the tools saying, this is what we would be looking for.
Yeah.
You've got the design people, including myself, this is what we need. And it was, sit down for an afternoon, work through the problems, how do we get to that end point? And we would therefore fast track through a lot of design. Then my role then, particularly on site, was troubleshoot any difficult areas. Come to site, have a look, how do we do this bit over here? I'd go back, within 2 hours, I'd draw something for them, take it back to them, that's how you build it, crack on.
Well, you mentioned collaboration, you mentioned teamwork, remarkable that you did that in a year. For somebody outside of the industry like myself, why would it take 3 years now?
We've got a lot more process in terms of how we get things done. Back in the 90s, I would think to design a typical building, say 5, 10 million, you'd need about 3 people in the room. The architect, structural civil engineer, and the services engineer. You'd sit down together and go, how are we going to do this design? I would lead out in that process, do some coordination and say, this is how we're going to do the structural frame. Engineer, go and do me a steelwork drawings around that. This will be your service zone. Services engineer, you get this void to put your ducts in. This is how we're going to do the lighting strategy. Now when you go into a meeting, you've got maybe 6, 8 people in the room. It's become much more fragmented. You've got the fire engineer, who's become incredibly powerful within all projects. Now, there's a nervousness from what I call the traditional designers to then lead the design and lead on fire strategy. So, for most, let's say you design an office building, there's basic rules, 2 means of escape, staircase, which is fire protected, evacuation, etc. A fire engineer may come in with a more cautious approach because they're the fire engineer. What are they there for if not to add more in terms of safety? Is it required? Discuss. But you've now then got the rest of the designers leaning back going, well, he's saying that's just added £500,000 to the project.
Wow.
But because that's a fire engineer saying it, we better do it. And then you've got health and safety advisors. You've got now, under the Building Safety Act, you've got the Building Regs PD, principal designers. So you've got a lot of people in the room. You then maybe have the client as well. So if you've got 8, 10 people in the room in a design meeting, you're suddenly aware you're much more on show. So you're going to take a more of a conservative approach about how you do things, which generally takes longer, and you therefore get a more protracted process.
Let me ask you then, sort of, again, this is interesting from an outsider who sort of tunes into economically what's happening in the UK and not fully understanding the arguments behind it, for example, in terms of why there is so difficult to grow an economy, etc. We hear all of the time about regulation, we hear about bureaucracy, we hear people with loose comments saying it's impossible to build anything in the UK any longer.
Yep.
With all of this health and safety, regulation, everything else, is it now to the point that it's, in your opinion, that is it overcooked? Is it overdone? Does it need to I don't know, do we need new legislation so that we can free up the people to be able to build? Because Angela Rayner, for example, she says that that's what they're doing. She's talking about building 3 million homes, and there may be other reasons for that, and there may be a lot of, we're talking residential, but is there too much regulation stopping projects like this happening?
There's too much process. Yes, there is. The Building Safety Act is the biggest piece of legislation since the Second World War.
Yeah.
It ripples out into about 30 other pieces of legislation. It now creates a lot more process as to how to get things done. Now, is that good or bad? That's what we're going to work out within the industry. But let's take the positive side of it. It wants things to be safer, so that's good.
Yeah.
Let's say, as an example, let me give an analogy. If I was to say, drive to Scotland. Laurence, could you drive to Scotland? You go, yes, I could. I could get in my car, drive on the roads, within the speed limit, my car's functional, within 7-8 hours, you could be in Scotland. Well, I've said, tell you what, every time you go through a county border crossing, why don't we get your car checked to make sure it is safe?
Yeah.
Why don't we get you checked, get your eyesight checked? Why don't we also check whether you've had enough sleep the day before? All of these things would improve safety on the road. So it's the level of how far do we go in terms of check, check, check. I would summarise what the Building Safety Act is trying to do to say, could everyone just do their job competently and properly? Grenfell is the big reason we've got the Building Safety Act. And it's because everybody's roles got fragmented and it wasn't joined up. And therefore, I'm doing my little bit over here, I'm doing my bit over here, I'm doing my bit over here. Where's the cohesion between all of that? And the findings then from the Hackett report was, there's no one in charge. We're spending millions of pounds, but there's no one in charge. So let's go back to my old way of doing things. The architect leads the project. You're responsible for the design. You have these other engineers with you. They're responsible for their bits. Everyone just do your job properly, and then we should be able to get to the end product safely. If you want some checkpoints in there, sure. But we've now got 2 health and safety people essentially sat in the room as well to check that everyone's doing what they should be doing. So that's going to take time. It's going to cost money. It's going to add more process. If we then want to pass that on to the contractor, we need to add 28 days in baton pass time. That's more time. That may be insufficient, and the receiving principal design on the contractor side may go, I need more time. So we're adding more and more process into everything that we do, which takes time.
Yeah, interesting. And so I understand now why you say that a project such as the Energy Glass Factory in Cardiff Bay, which took a year to fast track through, now that couldn't be done in less than 3 years, unless legislation changed or whatever else. Okay. When I was chatting to you as well, interesting that you said you were talking about construction, the construction industry, and we're talking from a political point of view anyway, an ambition to build more, to sort of free up the bureaucracy, the planning rules and everything else, so we can build. But you mentioned to me that really great ambitions, but there's a resource issue, that we're light within the sector. What are we light on, Paul? What do we need?
We're light on people. There's not enough people to do all the work that we want to do. We need designers, we need planning officers, we need building control people, we need people to physically build. I would guess we're between 250 to 500,000 people light in terms of what's required. Which means that sometimes when I'm going on projects, going to meetings, I'm going, there are people in the room that I think, if this was the late 90s, early 2000s, you'd be 2 positions down in what you're doing. You wouldn't be leading the project, you'd be assisting. But now they're leading the project. They're stretched. Their skills or experience may not be quite there, therefore they're having to try and fill in and work out what is it we've got to do. Or maybe they can't get through the workload. So if we want in the UK, as we do, to build a lot of houses, we need people that can build houses. We need the supply chain that can provide the materials to build. And we need the processes that allow to get to planning permission so that we can get them done.
So this is not a political debate, it's a reality.
Yeah,
We've
sure.
got politicians saying one thing in Parliament. Where are these people coming from? Where are the skill sets? Where are the people who are going to fill these jobs? Do they exist, or have we just not got enough people trained or in the system to fill these vacancies?
We probably haven't got enough in the system. Whether it's construction or other sectors, we probably need people to come from abroad. We used to have a lot more European labourers in the UK.
Yeah.
A lot have gone back to East Europe. COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people went back for that. Brexit caused a bit of an exit. So suddenly we're getting a little bit depleted. We've also then got the ones that were probably close to retirement saying, I'll retire early. And we've got a depletion from there, which has left us short. So I would think it's going to take a decade to recover to the resource level that we need, because we need young people to come through and choose construction.
Do our politicians understand that?
I haven't spoken to politicians to work that out, so I wouldn't really know.
Maybe we should suggest, maybe I'll suggest to our politicians that you have a conversation with them.
Always happy to have a conversation.
Words across the dispatch box are cheap, aren't they? But unless you've got something to back it up, and then you're gone in 4 years and somebody else comes in and says something else. But there we go. All right. It's interesting though, it's fascinating because this affects us all. It helps build our economy. And it's interesting listening to your take on it. Moving into some other projects that you have been involved in over the years, and just give us an insight really, only from an architecture point of view in terms of what your skill sets you brought and what were the benefits. So I can call a few out. For example, you were involved with the Children's Hospital for Wales. I know you've also been working on projects previously with the Royal Mail, and you've also been involved previously with Coca-Cola distribution centres. Those three then, for example, give us an insight. What were you doing there?
Children's Hospital for Wales, fantastic project, lovely high profile piece. Suddenly everyone's focused on, let's get it done right, right? Let's make it a good process, and it finished early.
Brilliant.
With that focus, everybody thought, let's get it done early. Why can't we focus like that on all projects?
Great question.
So that was a beautiful project to work on. It was a privilege to work on it. I can't say I designed it. Someone in Boys Rees, a guy called Martin, did a beautiful job. He designed it. I led the delivery team. So that was a good project. Let me touch on Coca-Cola, which was very interesting. Did the distribution centres in London for that. So all the Coca-Cola that goes through London will go through the distribution centres that we did in North and South London. What was impressive about that then was, in early 2000, about 2002 that we were doing that, they were already looking at their 2015 numbers, going, this is what we need to achieve our distribution. So they were planning over a decade ahead. They had in the room all the decision makers, which was essentially 2 people. So you'd go into a project meeting, there may be about 4 or 5 of us on the project side, and 2 people from Coca-Cola. You would walk out the meeting with decisions.
Impressive.
I totally get that culturally that's completely different to some of the things we do on the public sector side, and I also understand that public sector have different responsibilities, different reportings that they need to achieve. But sometimes you can go into a public sector project and there's 10 people in the room, 20 people in the room. And to be fair to some of those people, they're always not sure why we're here. So, but that's expensive. And that then adds more process to everything. So you get a nice contrast with Coca-Cola as to how things got done. It was done on time, as you might imagine. And then actually a nice in-between the two, the Royal Mail. That was, again, great to work with. Very good people within Royal Mail looking at how do we get the mail distributed better. So this is late 90s going into the early 2000s. And I'd done quite a lot of buildings for Royal Mail, distribution centres, etc. And they said, Paul, you understand what we do. How do we use the buildings better? So they said, have a 3-month commission just to sort of like think through our building design. Over a period of time, we took out 25% of the floor plate requirement. We then started to model how many actual buildings do we need around the UK. So by looking at literally the specific space that you need to work within a mail centre or a distribution office, working through that space, we could go, actually we can optimise this. It shrunk the estate, which allowed the Royal Mail then to remap how many buildings they need. It meant they released money out of their estate, which they could invest back into the business. So that piece of work translated into something that I started to develop when I moved into Lee Wakeman's, is to really look at that relationship between design, money, use of space, how does it achieve something for an end client. And we got into projects then for other, say, blue chip companies, where they said, can you have a look at what we're doing? So I did. And I'll take one project where I said, I think we can bring 3 buildings into 2 and merge the functionality of what you're trying to do with your people into that space. The client at that time said, that sounds like it's going to be crammed. So I said, tell you what, let me just show you what we'll do. So we did some design work with an architect. I collaborated with that architect. And that client still wasn't quite convinced this would work. So we said, tell you what, we'll build you 50 square meters of your new office physically in your building. So you can touch it, feel it, see what it looks like. We did. And they said, what, we can have this? Yes, you can. Can we also then have this? Can we have this? And can we have this? So that we then completed that project. We got 300 people into an office which used to have 200 people in, and they said it was more spacious.
That's
and
amazing.
It also then changed the interaction between the staff members, because we developed things like having team leaders furthest from the circulation areas or the lift, so they walked through their team. If you walk through your team can talk to you.
I like it.
Yeah. You then created little incidental spaces where you can go and have a coffee. If you can go and have a coffee there, we have 300 linear meters of write on walls. That means you can sit down and have a coffee and you can start brainstorming. You can write on the wall. We did things like that. We gave them...
So the whole workplace,
Yeah.
you're reducing the space,
Yeah.
but also paradox that is you're making the space bigger, more productive, where people can meet, greet, collaborate, work.
Correct.
Productivity goes up.
Correct.
Fascinating.
One of the things that I say to people when I work on these type of projects is, if I told you a member of your staff or your team was only working 50% of the time, what would you say? You wouldn't be happy. If I say your building's only working for you 50% of the time, what would you say? And I can't even conceive that. So I said, well, let's metricate it. Let me measure the utilization of your building. Let's translate that into the floor space, how people are using it, how much that costs you, and then what could be the return on investment on remapping that. So on some projects, we've completely re-kitted out an office building, and the payback has been 1.5 years.
That's amazing. And that's amazing. And that is, excuse the cliche, that's you with a creative insight to present to your client, thinking out of the box in what you could do with the existing space, smaller spaces.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the client can't see it.
No.
One of the examples you gave where you recreated it in the existing building, and then they see it. So seeing is believing.
You need to help people to actually see the end state that you're trying to get to.
Because some people can't.
Most people can't. Most people can't. I've put chairs out in a car park to map out how a floor plate is going to work for a managing director to actually see how is his extension of his building going to work. And once he saw it, he goes, I can see where the rooms are going to be now.
I get it, yeah.
Couldn't read the plans. So I said, we'll put chairs out in the car park. You'll see it then.
Okay. Simplicity.
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting you talk when you talk about those buildings and people able to collaborate, work, move around, the managers, the leaders of the business walking through their people they're perceived and seen on a day-to-day basis. In your current role at Lee Wakeman's, do you put a lot of emphasis in terms of your people and the culture and the values that you're trying to create in that organisation?
Absolutely. Team is the most significant thing. If you want to pursue anything which requires multiple people, you need to have a good team ethos. So
what have you learned during that time? Again, you know it. I sort of get it.
Yeah.
But people listening to this, in simplistic terms, you've given us an example there, for example, with the new building and the leaders walking through the team of people. But what is, down to basics, what is so important about people collaborating and working together as a team?
Listening to each other.
Okay. Big.
Talking to each other.
Yeah.
But then also somebody having to go, as a director for me, I'll make a decision, this is the way we're going to go.
Yes.
and that's leadership.
So people in the room listening, talking, and then somebody there to make the decision. The Coca-Cola example, for example, you said there were 2 execs who made the decision.
Yep.
Not that it makes any difference, but were they British or American?
British.
But they made the decisions.
Yeah.
They were able.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Extremely important.
Yeah. I think communication is probably one of the most important things in our industry. One of the things I am very anti is email.
Yeah.
Email is not a means to have a conversation.
Explain that, the psychology behind that. Go a bit deeper. What's the issue with email?
So it's very easy to write an email. You just thought of something, I'll knock out an email, I'll send it around to half a dozen people, and suddenly this whole thread comes through. You could be back end of that thread and go, what's this conversation going on? Or maybe it's to do cover your backside type approach. So
if I'm working with you as part of your team, or maybe an external contractor as part of the team, and you're leading, how would you want me to communicate with you?
So for a project that we've just finished in London, working with a contractor there, week 1 started to get a lot of emails. So I rang the lead person for that project, a really good guy called Ben. I said, Ben, tell you what, if you have any issues that need sorting out, you just ring me. Okay? You don't need to email me, just ring me and I'll sort them out. He rang me 3-4 times in the week. That was it. And during that call I said, right, I will sort this out with so-and-so, or I'll get you that piece of information, job done. I also added into the early stage of that process was, I will make everybody available for 1 hour every Thursday. So if you've got queries, hold those queries till Thursday. Anybody that needs to make a decision or have an input can be there on the Thursday call, and we'll get it resolved then. So you don't need to email through the week. If there is something that really cannot hold until Thursday, absolutely, give me a ring and we'll sort it out. It dropped all the email traffic down by about 90%. I've done it with other clients where we had a baton pass on the phasing of a project. One director in the Wakeman's took it forward. We were getting about over 100 emails a week from a client. I took on the second phase and I said to that client, tell you what, let's do no emails. We'll just meet every week. 2-hour slot, bring everything to that table. Emails dropped to about 5 a week. I printed out those 5 emails, took it to the meeting, we solved it all within 2 hours. It becomes much more time efficient, but what's really nice is it's much more personable. You get to get the nuance. What is it that you're trying to say in this email? What's the important thing? How do I resolve those issues?
I think you're so right, because email, they can be misinterpreted
Absolutely.
easily. The
There's
tone of the email can be misinterpreted.
Yeah.
It can cause problems, friction, confrontation.
Yeah.
So, I completely get what you suggest in terms of either come to the meeting, we discuss it all then, or pick up the phone and speak to me.
Yeah.
We're human beings, for God's sake.
Absolutely.
Have a conversation, and it becomes more productive.
Yeah.
If you were coming back, as I'm interested in terms of this whole construction industry, let's just say you were appointed as an advisor to government, and it could be any government.
Sure.
At this, I know things change over time, but at this particular moment in time, what do you think are maybe 3 to 4 key points that you think, as an advisor, you'd be saying to the government now to improve our performance, our productivity in the construction industry so they can hit their targets, and how they find these extra resources that you were talking about in terms of people? What would you be saying?
Let's start with, let's have a long line of sight to where we're going. Legislation changing, particularly building regs, difference between England and Wales causes difficulties. So it's unclear as to what do I need to be ready for in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. You look at other countries who publish their 2030 or 2040 or 2035, we want to be here in 15 years.
Yeah.
And we're going to go there. And these are usually the non-democratic countries.
Yeah.
So they can go, right, by 2040, this is where we're going to be. And they'll just carry on going because they've got a clear line of sight. I want to get to that point.
And China's probably a great example of that.
China, Middle East, a lot of these countries just go, we're setting out where we want to go and we're going to get there. For us then, take the Building Safety Act, attended an event in Wales. What's going to be the Welsh version? We don't know. So how do we plan? And people in the room were saying, but we have live projects which will fall under the Act in 2 years' time. We need to plan for that now. Well, we can't give you the guidance just yet. So we have to have that clarity about what is that path we're going down. Secondly, then, what we get is mixing up of legislation to achieve various things. So let's take planning, because everyone's aware that planning doesn't work. Planning in the 1990s, I could ring up a planning officer and say, my client is looking at a scheme. Let's say it's to build 20 houses on a piece of land. And I could have a chat straight away on the phone on the principles of that scheme and get a bit of a steer. Now you can't do that. You can't speak to them. So you'll lose. What they then says, we want now all these reports before you can come and speak to us. Then you get into what's called the pre-app stage. Formally need to go through a process to get to speak to us. We will then formally have a look at what you're doing. So we lose time, and then they might say no. We're trying to also use planning to achieve certain things like sustainability or affordable homes. So you're now trying to not just build some houses, you're trying to meet what the public sector want to achieve through various other drivers, which are all laudable, but it then goes, well, how do I achieve that? So we're mixing a lot of things up. If we strip it back to, we want to build 3 million houses, let's focus on building 3 million houses. Let's not try and then go, we're going to solve ecology, we're going to solve affordable homes, we're going to resolve anything else in terms of what needs to be a driver, because that just makes it very complicated to actually get homes.
I got to ask you, because you're clear in terms of your answers, in terms of what needs to be done. Do you ever get frustrated in your sector at Lee Wakeman's? You get frustrated with all of these, I call them barriers, that you're up against? Does it sort of weigh you down, or what keeps you going?
It can be challenging. Absolutely can be challenging. I always feel, though, I'm an optimist. I think you need to rise to the challenge. And therefore, you need to find ways to get things done. One of the things that I always think, what am I trying to achieve, particularly the things that get me excited, is achieving the impossible. There's a lot of times when we've faced a project request and people say that is not possible. It's just that you haven't found out the solution yet. I think a lot of projects are like a jigsaw.
And is that your attitude?
Yep.
Nothing's impossible. Just haven't found the solution
Correct.
yet. I like that.
It's like a jigsaw. You haven't got the lid,
Yeah.
so you don't know how the pieces need to come together. You've got to work it out. So whenever I get a load of jigsaw pieces and someone says, can you make this happen? I'll go, yes, I can. And then I'll try and work out how do we do it. And it is about now trying to find the connections.
Because I talk about on these podcasts about resilience. And speaking to somebody like yourself, it's sometimes because you've been very successful, it's difficult to sort of put your finger on where you've hit those tough spots, where that resilience comes through. But I think you've just summed it up. There's always a way. Nothing is impossible. Despite the barriers, the obstacles in the road, you find a way.
Yeah. And I think, I'll come back to the email analogy again. When a contractor started to, you could feel he's going to start to make a claim. So I said to my client, tell you what, this is like a Tuesday afternoon, I'm getting these emails, oh, we're not happy about this, etc. And this could be a problem. So tell you what, let's go to London, meet the contractor's managing director and some of the key people, and just talk to them face to face. What's the issues? How do we solve it? We went there, I rang up the contractor, I said, we're coming over Monday afternoon. Can you have your key people there? They did. Walked in the room. They looked very nervous.
How many key people in the room?
4.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And within 45 minutes, we solved everything.
There you go. People in a room.
In a room, absolutely. Not on email, not in back and forth. And not on Teams. It was get on the train, face to face, and we got that job done.
I got to ask you, it's nothing to do with architecture, it's about culture again and what's happened since COVID. You know, COVID changed the world for everybody. Changed behaviours. Getting people back to work in a room, in offices, is proving very difficult, to say the least. What's your take on it?
Yeah, totally. We've fragmented. As a workforce, we have now fragmented. I think that's the biggest challenge that I face in my business world. I'm working hard within the culture of Lee Wakeman's. I'm also working hard with how we interact with other people to say we need to actually find the time where we sit down, talk things through and work out how do we get to a solution. And therefore, but I also respect the fact that work-life balance has improved. the reduction in commuting is good. And so I go, I want to work on the positive side of that as well. So it's whether it's with my team or working with other people. I said there are times when we'll do this quickly on Teams, but there are absolute key times when we're all going to be in the room. We're going to go through this, we're going to get it done. Particularly when you get to a nodal point within the design or something like that.
And you know, I think when you get the people in the room and they see the results, how quickly decisions can be made, when people are all there to literally have a contribution and sort out whatever needs to be sorted out, when they can see how quickly it works, then the chances of them doing it again in the future are greatly improved, aren't they, when they see the benefits of it, as opposed to...
What we find at Lee Wakeman's then is, we get asked to do repeat commissions. We work with clients for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I saw it on your website. Impressive.
So it's because we come in with how do we solve this approach.
Great attitude.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to touch upon something else, which is, because it ties into your culture.
Go ahead.
Is, you mentioned to me, in fact, at the outset of this interview, although it wasn't live, that you're big into health and nutrition, and this ties into work-life balance as well.
Okay.
I think through Charlotte, who's your colleague, I think she mentioned to me as well that it's important for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, to have cut-off times. You know, work is work, and then what you do outside of work is different. So talking about health and nutrition and work-life balance, what are you doing?
Okay, let's go for a few work things first, and then I'll talk about nutrition. So on work, switch off at the end of the day. On my phone, turn off all notifications, right? No red dots, nothing pinging through. When I leave the office, I have finished work. I don't work in the evenings. I pretty much finish my working day 5:30. When I get home, I go for a walk, see my daughters, maybe walk the dog, do something to break the day. You
Absolutely.
end, and then we sit down as a family and have dinner. And then we have an evening.
Great.
You recharge, you refresh. Going more into me personally in terms of health, as I've got slightly older over the last few years.
As we are.
I've noticed certain things like, more tired, more lethargic, etc. So you go, right, why is that? And you think it's because I'm getting old. Actually, part the reason, but the thing that I've found most over the last couple of years is what you eat, the fuel you have, dramatically affects how you feel. So changing things like, I've been doing the Zoe nutrition program. So eat 30 plants, eat 30 grams of fiber a day. Reduce your meat, reduce your alcohol. Get the right nutrition in you and get the right pulsing through the day. And you actually feel better. Not instantly, but over time. Then starting to move. I remember one point thinking, when was the last time I ran? I can't remember. So I thought, I was in a park, I thought, I will try and run. I ran about 50 meters. It nearly killed me. So I then thought, well, what's going on here? I used to play five-a-side football, played volleyball, tennis, etc. So I started to move more. And in COVID, that really exemplified it, because suddenly you're just in front of teams all day. And I thought, I'm physically deteriorating here. So I thought, right, I'm going to do my step counts. Challenged myself to do minimum of 8,000 steps a day, and I've kept that going since COVID. So my average is now 10,000 a day.
But you see, I've asked you the question because it is so important. It doesn't really matter where you are in your time of life.
Yeah.
We take it for granted when we're younger, of course. But if you're not looking after yourself, if you're not physically fit, if you're not taking time to rest, if you're not watching what you put inside your body, the fuel you call it, then things are going to take its toll. So your mental health is going to deteriorate, particularly if you've got your phone pinging all night long with work emails or whatever notifications. So I'm with you. You've got to physically be aware of what's going on in your body and mentally aware as to what it's doing to your brain. And the fact that you've recognised that and doing something about it, I want to ask you the results, but they seem to me that you're doing remarkably well. 8,000 steps a day is pretty good. And you're also leading by example, aren't you, in work and probably within your family? And, and
you socialise it with the family, you socialise it with people at work. If there are pointers that you can give, then share the pointers.
But I think it'll help you build resilience as well.
Yeah, I totally. I mean, if you feel better, you feel better being productive in meetings, how you present yourself, which means you enjoy life more.
Well done, Paul. Listen, a couple of quickies for you, all right? You may or may not have. Do you like music?
Sure.
Best gig you've ever been to?
Best gig, okay, most recently ELO at the O2 in London.
Oh, wow. What an experience.
Fantastic. Jeff Lynne and his cohort of people there.
Another bit of trivia for you. You might not be able to answer this question.
Sure.
When are Arsenal going to win the league next?
Next season, of course.
Next season, of course, forever the optimist.
Absolutely.
And also in terms of books, do you read?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you'd recommend?
So, one of my interests at the moment is prehistory. What were we like before we got to the written record? So I've read quite a lot on what's happened in terms of archaeology, the records that come through from that. And it's fascinating that if you go back maybe 15,000 years ago before, there was more structure to society than we realise. And there's now records of how patterns of migration occurred across Europe. You can see it in the pottery that's been left behind and other things, the arrows and stone carvings, etc. And there was a lot of history. So I find that fascinating as to what we were like 30,000 years ago.
And maybe there are a lot of lessons to be learned from 13,000 years ago or whenever it was.
I think they had less bureaucracy then.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. And one last question for you. Daily non-negotiables, or have we already covered it with the switching off of the phone, etc.?
Yeah, look, one, try and enjoy the day.
Yeah.
Do things that support that, which is be prepared. So for me, I generally do a light run in the morning. It gets your blood going.
Yeah.
Feel awake. You know, it's like 3 coffees. Work out who you're going to interact with and be prepared as to how you interact. We all get frustrations. We all get trip-ups. And when that has happened, be prepared to talk things out with people and resolve what those issues are.
So enjoy the day. Get your exercise in. Make sure that you talk things with people in a room to resolve problems, and the philosophy, nothing is impossible.
Absolutely.
Paul, thank you so much for coming to speak to us this afternoon on No Straight Lines, Stories of the Unbreakable, and you know what, I have a feeling that you are genuinely unbreakable.
It's been fun. Thank you.
It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Laurence.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers now.